So, so what we want to do is we want to use this opportunity to get ourselves on a footing where our businesses are more lucrative and they're more stable. That's the idea of this. The way to get there, to me, and what's worked, is to understand what other people are doing and what they've done. So the idea is, where'd you start and where are you now? And what was that minefield that you crossed? And we're never quite, there, but we're somewhere different, than when we started. And, that's the idea of this. So I'm going to spotlight Chris and I here, and we're going to do this as a conversation. So I'm going to add to the spotlight right here. All right. And then I'm going to throw in the chat a link for anybody who's interested. But what I'm doing is I created a 30-minute kind of a session where I can sit down with anybody who's interested and talk about your situation. And I can identify pretty quickly what the one thing you can do differently is, as I've gathered all this information about myself and other people to make an impact as fast as possible around business stability and money. Those are the two areas that really matter the most. So Chris, I guess the starting point is just, you want to talk about what you do right now?
Yeah, sure. So I see a lot of faces. I know it's great to see everybody this morning. If you don't know me, I'm Chris Colt. I live in New York. I guess some of you got to hear the start of this conversation. I'm an endurance cycling junkie. I love to do those 100-mile mountain bike races, but that just didn't start one day. That was a journey that I led to getting to that point. I've done the hardest mountain bike race in North America, the Leadville 100. It's one of those things, a lifelong dream that I got to accomplish. It actually led to the journey of what Larry and I are going to talk about today. Been in sales for over 25 years. And what I do now is I help clients build thriving communities by using the challenge model, because I've started doing these challenges last year, actually 2 years ago, saw how they were building community and what was happening on that, and giving clients, my clients, on-demand clients on demand from building their communities. And it's been a blast since then, but we'll talk about how that evolved as we go through this conversation, Larry.
Yeah, perfect. So we go back in the Wayback Machine to start and kind of figure out where the point is. And I think that beginning point is wherever you want to start. I mean, you could already be on the journey and doing pretty well where you start your point, or it could be at the very biggest sort of pain point that motivated you initially. Where would you go back to?
I'd go back to corporate America, being in sales and just being stuck on the grind. I was always in sales, always quota driven. And I've done well in my career, and I say that humbly, but I also never felt fulfilled doing that kind of stuff. It was always about the quota, get this deal done. And I was always about relationships with folks. And that was my core foundation. And I ran into a lot of issues when you had quota to hit and you had to sell something that didn't mean something for the person you were trying to sell it to, and you had to go through all those pressure techniques. That wasn't me. It wasn't who I was. So one day, I finally got to the point I could do a lifelong dream, which is that bike race right there. You see back there, the Leadville 100. And, I was training for it. I was in the top optimized shape of my life. I was a professional athlete, essentially, at the age of 44. I was doing okay in my job. I had the largest deal on the table for the company at the time. A new sheriff came in town. That'd be a new boss. And I was about to go on a 3-week journey that I had agreed on with my company that I could take 3 weeks off, because my family and I were driving from New York out to Colorado to do this bike race. This was a once in a lifetime experience. I get a call from the new sheriff, who didn't talk to me in his whole 3 weeks of being new. And all of a sudden it's like, where are you going? What are you doing? You can't do this. Why don't you just get on a plane and go out there? So long story short, the gut feeling in me, and I was building a side hustle at this, I should say at this time, the gut feeling in me said, okay, Chris, this is that defining moment. You're going after a dream in life. You're not going to back away from that dream in life. You've been training your whole life for something like this. You have 3 kids watching you. So that was the moment that Monday, after having a conversation with my wife, made the decision to go all in on entrepreneurship, and had an awesome 4-week trip to Colorado. We added a week onto that. So that's where it started. And then since then, it's just evolved. I had multiple side hustles going on that were bringing in some income streams. But then it allowed me to really start to find my passion and my purpose of how I wanted to serve folks. Did I have a complete plan when I jumped into entrepreneurship? No, I had some income streams that were working and they were doing what I wanted them to do, but I knew there was something more in me. And I just went on this journey, Larry, kind of like a bike race. Hey, there's a finish line, there's a big vision I'm going towards. But as I go along, I take the next trail. Okay, where do we have to go here that eventually leads there? And there's been some rough turns along the way. I'll never deny that, but there's been awesome turns. That's just part of the journey.
So when you have this moment of realization, then that you can't really be successfully happy within the confines of somebody else's world, and you decide to go out on your own. If somebody's at that moment in their life, should they really go towards that side hustle first, do you think, or just take the full leap?
I would say it depends what you have in your bank account. That's my learning experience.
Right.
I never will go back and say I should have did a few things differently, because I believe when you step into something, that's your journey and you go for it, right? That's part of your story. So I don't go back and regret. I'm grateful I had the side hustles. I'll never deny that. They covered some situations in life that we needed to, but I would always say to a person who's going to make that move to definitely understand the fact that you're going to make a lot of sacrifices. It's not going to go as you planned. It will not go as you plan. I guarantee you that. And how prepared are you for a storm? And that's the key I encourage anybody to look at. And if you're comfortable enough with that, you're never going to be completely comfortable. It's impossible to be completely comfortable. Go for it. But I would encourage those side income streams. Yeah, I would. I mean, personally, they're nice to have. And, when you got a mortgage payment and you don't know how income's coming in, you got a side hustle that's doing it. It doesn't hurt to have those kind of things.
I think it's an important lesson. I've had the same experience, because you don't know financially what's going to happen, and you want to be free as much as possible from the implications of things going really slowly. I know when I started my other business called Sales Partners, which is still alive and well, I made $750,000 in net income in a couple of years. But I've had other situations where I didn't make anything for a year, no income, for a year. Couple years before I did that one, when I got into marketing tech sales with another company, I was trying to start a sales bounce, outsourced VP of sales. I didn't make any money for a year. It's a scary situation.
Oh yeah, it'll teach you a lot of lessons in life, a lot.
So how do you start? You leave your job, and then did you know what your company was going to be when you did that?
So my background being in sales, and I've always had this knack for building relationships. So I knew how to use LinkedIn really well. So I just started building a business around that, helping people with LinkedIn. Went to a lot of companies and friends that I knew that needed some of that help, consulted some of their sales teams, and then just started building programs to help others. And just, I was never big on building a course to build a course and hoping I could sell it, because that never works. So I would always get clients. And as those needs came, I would record little videos along the way and then find, okay, hey, you know what? This is a program that when a client launches with me, I have something that's real, means something to them. And then as I evolved further, there was a little bit more and more. And over time, just built a little bit of a ladder that, I'm grateful I never point blank build one course, because I see people do that kind of stuff and they haven't tested it on the market yet versus working in real time. Oh, Larry needs that. You know what? So does Chella. So does Deb. They're all going to, okay, let me make a little part of that. And then you just build that program together. So
Yeah,
it just evolved, Larry, it evolved to be 100% transparent, just step by step going through the process.
Yeah, and we've talked about this. I have this approach called ready, fire, aim. And the fire is market feedback. Basically, as you get out there, you have sales skills. I have sales skills. I've pioneered new markets multiple times, so I'm not afraid to do that. But I think most people don't. Most people have expertise, domain expertise. Do you have any kind of advice for people who don't have the sales skills? Like, is there some basic, table stakes that you've got to learn how to do?
Marketing becomes key. How do you market yourself? And, how do you get your name out in front of others in an authentic way? So, I mean, your content's going to become key. That's something, especially in this online world we live on, you have to have good content that speaks to your people group. A lot of, I did a lot of networking. I mean, look what you and I started doing last year. We just did some
Mhm.
nice little partnerships and did a few things together. I've done a lot of that because I work with a lot of clients who do not like selling, and I understand that. You don't want to feel like a salesperson. There's nothing wrong with sales, right? If nothing's sold, nothing happens in life. But you want to be that authentic person so nobody feels like they've been sold. They're just like, this is exactly what I need. So what I've learned to do is go out and get that market feedback and literally listen to interviews, talking to others and hearing what they said on my questions and then diving deeper in that. And all my content was revolving around those answers. Now that took some time. I didn't just figure that out. It took a lot of, let's just say a lot of sweat equity, but all of a sudden it started clicking like, wow, I know I can do all this, but none of that means anything to anybody until you hear their pain points and then you can bring the two together. And, we'll talk a little bit more as we go through this. The model I've been using to do that and over the last few years, I've seen that evolve, not just for myself, but for those that I'm working with. Like I'm watching them be servants because I've worked with a lot of clients when they first say it, work with me, Chris, I hate selling. I'm like, great, that's a bad mindset because you are awesome at what you're doing. You're making an impact on what you're doing. You're going to change a lot of lives. So you can't feel that way, but I understand why you feel that way. So we're going to work through that process.
I think it's an interesting point about content. And one of the things I've noticed is there's a big content marketing industry that sells content as the answer to opportunity creation. And on its own, my gut instinct is it doesn't work, that it's got to be built with connection strategies as well, like you're talking about, where you're getting meetings with people and talking to people. Do you find that that's true? I mean, or are you really slanting towards figuring out the content, figuring out the market feedback, and then starting to drive inbound leads from that?
For me, I'm big on one word. And I mean, there's an example right here, community. It all revolves around a community. Because here's anything I've seen, anybody I talk to, anybody that I communicate with, it's always says, Chris, I need to attract a lot of people to me and I just need to close them. And I'm like, well, here's how this world works. You want to attract, you want to nurture, and yes, the conversions will happen authentically. So until you can figure that model out, how do you attract? And then how do you nurture? And this is where most people miss it, nurturing, right? Any of us, I see a lot of awesome faces here that I know, and we communicate like that. We can attract amazing people. Okay. We all can, but how do you nurture that relationship? And so many people break that part of things. And I've broken it many times. And then all of a sudden, there was a movement that I helped launch. That was a community that literally started with 100 people that now is I think it's a $1.2 billion company in sub 5 years because they launched off a community and nurtured and nurtured. And this company now, anytime they launch some new product, boom, the cash register goes off because of that trust factor, because they nurtured those people in the process. So if you're hearing anything, and I cannot say that this just happened. I learned this through some pain because I was like, wow, I'm great at attracting people. And then I was like, wait a minute, what's going on in the middle here? It's mixed. Why is this not staying? Why am I always, quite frankly, chasing people? Okay, been there. Who's been there? Chasing people. That's the worst.
It
Then all of a
is.
sudden, I mean, it's like, why get away from that model? Nurture in the middle and then let the right ones raise their hand when they're ready to go. So that's kind of what I've been working towards. And, it's what you're doing now too here, Larry.
Yeah, we did a clubhouse room, a bunch of rooms on series on sales is the new pipeline. I mean,
Yeah.
community is the new pipeline. Community is the new sales pipeline. I'm curious about the details. So how do you do that then? There's people on this call who are good on LinkedIn already. They're posting, they're getting meetings, they're coming to events like this, they're meeting people, maybe they're doing a lunch club. But then there's this sort of nothing happens,
Yeah.
afterwards. So if you're in that nothing happens mode, what do you do if you're going to use community as your strategy for pipeline?
Well, I mean, there's two things. Make sure you're around communities like this, others that align with who you are and what you're about. I'm big on micro niching. If you don't know what that is, that's really niching down to a target market and target people group. Because if you're going to build any kind of community, you want to have that niche down. So Larry's working with the self-employed here. He has this really niche down, and he's going to attract those like-minded individuals into that who want to be part of this, who want to interact. So you want to niche it down. I see too many people launching communities that speak to the whole world. So for me, right, if I just said, hey, I'm launching a cycling community, great. That's like a bajillion people out there that could get in that. But if I start to narrow this down to, I'm launching a cycling community for mountain bikers that are veterans that race single speeds and do 100-mile mountain bike races. Do you know how refined that is? But that refinement is attracting a massive market segment. You know, the cycling market is billions and billions and billions of dollars. And if I went to launch a community in there and I wanted to build a whole entire affiliate program around that and make offers and have coaches, I would narrow it down to that such of a level, because that level goes down from the multi-billion-dollar market down to probably $100-200 million market. If you can take a piece of that, that is huge. So that's something you want to look at as you start to build those communities out. I've been part of communities that are, hey, we focus on C-level executives. Well, that's great. Like, no wonder, like a C-level executive, what kind of C-level executive, what kind of company they're in? You know, you can take that so scaled down and crush it and become the category authority when you do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned category authority, and that goes back to, first, I totally agree with the micro niching idea. As you go back to content and the content concept, how do you figure out what to talk about? I see a lot of people talking about themselves, and I see a lot of people talking about technical business issues. In other words, the problems they can solve. So if it's an HR person, they're talking about HR, but it's not really thought leadership. So how do you figure out what to talk about, and how do you do that?
So I'll give you a pure example. I'm working with a client now, and this client, we're working through a lot of amazing things right now. I take notes. I mean, I'm like, she laughs, you're always writing down. I'm like, because you're saying so much good stuff that's so valuable. And I don't want to look like I'm typing on something. I take what she says to me, what she speaks to me, that is coming right out of her language. Then I try to figure out how to make that into content. So I'm speaking to that people group. So like what she's doing in the leadership world, if I can take what she said of all her, why people aren't converting, why she's not getting the right people group, how is she getting all this attraction together? If I can speak her language, it's going to attract the same kind of individuals. And I know I can help those kind of individuals. It's not like I thought, oh, maybe I can help you, maybe I can't. It's like, no, we can do very well together because we've done this before. So I try to listen and then put that into the content out there, but not the technical jargon. You know, like you said, Larry, there's so many like, hey, I can do, you know, I can go, this software does blah, 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 and it creates this. Nobody understands what that means. They want to hear about what is the transformation on the other side. Like that's where your content has to be driven.
Yeah, and I'll add a technical tip to help people that are struggling with the consistency around this. It's actually very easy. So you download a tape recorder app on your phone, and you get Otter. You probably need a subscription because they limit, but it's Otter's the best one we've found. I'm sure we're going to get 5 million options in the chat. So if you want to pick another one, fine. It doesn't really matter. And then you import that recording into Otter, and then you create your posts out of the recording. It's very easy, and you can have an admin do it even, and the admin will give you back what a post should look like, and then you can sort of do a final approval, and you can just start knocking those things out. It's really, really easy to do. And I find when I switched to that, all of a sudden I could elevate my thinking a lot, because I'm doing this on dog walks.
Yep.
No, it's simple to do. I mean, I got all kinds of ideas in my head. Just talk about them.
Well, yeah. And I mean, when it comes to content, like I'm sure everybody does this, but make sure you have folders that you just like, when you get these ideas, like I have a whole entire board that I have that has, you know, when I speak to people, idea, information, ready to post. Because my post, I have minimal all the time, 2 weeks post ready. I mean, quite frankly, I have almost a month of post ready now, because I don't want to wake up and be like, what do I got to post today? It's the worst position to be in.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about LinkedIn a little bit. I think there's a frustration with LinkedIn. I think we're at a level where a lot of people I run into kind of get it. Like they've seen enough LinkedIn discussions like these, where they're doing something, they're out there, they're sort of networking, they're sort of connecting, but I noticed there's a lack of focus and there's a lack of conversion, real conversion going on. How do you, I know it's a kind of a broad question, but how are you using LinkedIn effectively right now?
Well, I'll show you one thing. Time's a very precious thing. So I use a focus planner. I'm one of those old school guys who still likes to write things down. I'm just going to show you one part of this. You see color codes here. So that's like on an ideal week for me, right? And if you saw the green there, those are income producing activities. So on a daily basis, I have a certain amount of very focused effort. So what's that mean? I go into Sales Navigator and I set up a list of potential to-be clients, others that I want to engage with, because I can bring value to what they have in engaging. And they also attract the kind of clients that I'm looking for, to build relationships. So I book out 30-minute blocks, and those 30-minute blocks might be just engaging. I look at nothing else. Those red dots come anywhere else, I don't look at them. Then I have another 30 minutes in the day. Oh, red dot time. Let me go through my notifications and see which ones of those I want to do. Oh, 30 minutes of DMs. That means I'm only sending outbound. So even if I sent Larry a message and Larry responds back in those 30 minutes, I don't respond back, because that triggers you into a different world. So it's very focused on how you use those time. And, when it comes to, like you said, Larry, conversions, I am so invested in a person if they'll do business with me or not, or if they're going to be the next quote unquote. So I'm sorry. I don't know how people are going to take that one, but I am not vested in that. I'm vested in the relationship and collaboration. So when I want to connect with somebody on a real basis, I always just say, hey, if you're open for it, let's grab 20 minutes, have a virtual coffee or tea, just to get to know each other a little better, collaborate, see where we can help each other out, ask each other a few questions. I just go with that approach, and I get meetings all day long because of that, because they go to my content, right? And this is the other thing, make sure you have that content. They see how I engage with people. They can go see on LinkedIn, the beauty of LinkedIn, they can start following who I engage with and how I engage. And I'd say just that approach, every 10 people I ask for a meeting, I'm getting 8 or 9 of them. And the others like, hey, let's push this off a month, I'm busy. So it's just being that. And it's so laser focused. I'm not going for 100 messages outbound on a weekly basis like most people are. I am very laser focused on typically 12 to 18 messages a week that are going back and forth to get meetings.
I think you said a couple things that I want to kind of put a period around. So, so people on this call here, if you have not time blocked your entire day, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. It's wrong. It won't work. You will not be able to sustain building a stable business. I'm convinced of that from my own experiences. The second thing is that you can't be in social media feeds. Social media feeds are for people who are addicted to social media, and they want the, brain chemistry trigger, whatever that's cortisol, whatever those chemicals are. So I think Chris is right on. It's what I'm doing is there's 2 types of social media. There's Sales Navigator, connecting, and then there's what I call the social media party, which is getting into people who have a lot of followers who fit your profile. You get to know those people who are posting on calls, you do things for them, and then you start showing up and you get validated by them in their feed. And then you can start getting meetings and connecting with all the people that follow them. That's the social media party. And you would be amazed if you're in BI, business intelligence, or any of this. I know a guy who has this massive following on LinkedIn, and all he does is post about BI. He's a BI thought leader, and all these BI people, analytics people follow him. These people are buried all over LinkedIn. And if you go follow them, join the social media party, you're going to get known in the group. And then Navigator is the list. So Navigator gets you, it's like the new way of doing cold outreach, but it doesn't feel that way. Again, it feels like you're kind of getting to know people without the expectation of conversion. I know we're going to get some questions and other people want to weigh in. So if you just keep putting your questions, or you want to kind of come up, we'll go for a little bit longer. And then I want to start bringing, people up here to either talk about your experience with this sort of these things, or ask questions about it. So it's interactive. We don't want this to be like a webinar kind of situation, staying away from all that. So if you're getting clients, and we talked about this a little bit, and I don't know if there's an easy solution to this, but you're getting clients through all these activities, and then all of a sudden you can't manage your time blocks anymore because for revenue, because you got all these clients and all those demands. How do you navigate that time pressure situation as you get more successful? So in other
That's
words,
like,
how do you scale?
yeah. Now you're putting a thorn in me, Larry.
Yeah, I know.
You know, I
I'm doing it on purpose.
I know you are, because I missed some meetings, and you know why I missed meetings, right? So there you go. It's, yeah, just transparency. That is my personal biggest challenge is right there, because you want to serve your clients, and but you also need to have ways of bringing in new clients. So how do you balance that? And that was something I was juggling a lot over the last 12 months, because I was helping clients launch their challenges. We were heavily involved. We were doing really well. And there's a lot of work involved in that. So for me, what I've started to shift to personally after the eye opening last year is I'm doing more group programming now. So working with my clients in groups and then giving one-on-one sessions where they're needed. And now it's getting back into a flow. I've been showing up on the other things I need to do. I mean, I'm grateful. The one thing I always kept doing was my income producing activity. So the stuff I do on LinkedIn and the messaging. But there are things that as time went on, like any human being, especially an entrepreneur, it's like, gosh, I got all this I have to get done, this done. I have 3 kids. I have a wife. I need to have a life, right? You have to balance all that stuff. So I took a deep breath and just said, okay, I'm going to go back to what I was doing before, more in a group format where it's easier to scale, easier to maintain, give more service, help more people scale at scale, and then offer the one-on-one sessions within that as I build my community, right? Because it's all based in a community that we do this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And
Thanks for
when
the
we talk,
thorn though. Like that's, I mean, I'll 100% transparency. That's like, screw.
as I look at people who are really happily self-employed, because they have figured it out, they've figured that part out.
Yeah.
It's got to get figured out. You have to find a way to scale yourself. And I've transparency as well. I did it with my other company. So I spend no time on that company. I have somebody running it for me. I don't have to do anything anymore. And that took a couple of years. This company is different. So I am enmeshed in it right now. And the minute I figure everything out, and it's kind of really at that inflection point, then I will find ways to start to step back and be more of the face of it as opposed to delivery. So I would encourage everybody here to immediately start thinking about that. And Michael Gerber wrote a book called The E-Myth, which really talks about all the details of that, which
You
I
know,
think is a really good approach.
I'll add to that, Larry. Systems, like you're sending the same kind of information to people, you're getting clients that are asking the same questions. Take a lot of notes on that stuff and have that stuff. You know, any client that comes to me now, if they have, hey, how do I do this? How do I do that? Like I have, oh, you know what? Great. It's right there in the community page. And like, they're like, holy cow, you have everything. I'm like, I've worked with enough people that I took a lot of good notes. So that's alleviating a lot of things for me too. So make sure you have good systems in place, especially if you're using LinkedIn and all that. If somebody asks me for something, it's always the same thing they're asking for. The only thing I need to do is change the name and maybe a sentence. So I have it in text replacement. I have it over here, email sequencing, all this stuff, client comes on. You get all those back end systems together. It does get a lot easier, but it takes a little figuring out along the way.
Yeah, it's I call that task engineering, and I do that quite a bit as well. And then the other piece of it is who works the most efficiently in business today. To me, it's software developers. Software engineers really know how to work, and they know how to work as a team, and they don't screw stuff up because then you got to go back and redo it. And there's a sprint system. We have a daily stand-up meeting. We have boards with sprints, with deadlines for everything. Every card in Trello has a deadline, and it has a little Loom video. So there's a system called Loom. For anybody who doesn't know it, you can record yourself. You can record a little video. We have a virtual assistant. We don't get on tons of meetings with her. We send her Looms and Trello cards. And it's like, okay, here's the thing. And that way you don't bring people into your confusion. And I think scalability, the problem is you bring people into your confusion. This is where I've fallen apart.
Yep.
And then there's no task engineering. So I feel like I'm redoing every single thing every time, bring people into my confusion, dump the work onto them, which is what happens when you hire a VA. And then you're just spinning in circles all the time. But you learn that through the hard experience, right? So what other kind of mistakes, I guess, have you made where you got deep into something, you went down the wrong pathway, and then you realized this is not working and solved that problem?
I mean, I've made a partnership or two in along that realm where, kind of what I do, I know the kind of people I can help and the kind of impact I can make. And I personally have come to find, everybody wants this dream life of go put a landing page up and people will just sign up. That's great if you have a course. It's great maybe if you have a membership area. But if you're working closely with your clients and you're helping them create revenue, I don't think that's a great scenario. I'm sorry. So I was in a partnership that it just the clients coming, they were great people, but what I did and how I do it, we weren't a good fit to get where they wanted to go, and probably got put into a couple of situations I wish I wasn't. We got through it, but looking back, if you're going to do joint ventures, be very, very careful on the processes you set up with that. Like how I could have alleviated that. Hey, before a contract signed that I'm not involved in, they need to have a conversation with me, because I'm very upfront with people. I want to help as many people as I can. That's that's what I want to do in life, but I also don't want to take on those wrong clients. You want to have the right clients so you can serve more people. So for me, I have learned, it does take a meeting after they've learned what I do, how I do it. They trust me. It just takes having that conversation to see if it's win-win for both. So that's something you want to make sure that you don't put yourself in a situation that you end up with the wrong clients.
So when you speak about joint ventures, what does that look like? And have you found any of those relationships that have actually worked well for you?
One I didn't work well. It should have worked well. It just didn't. Another, we got pretty far along. Things were working fine. It's just when it got to the point they wanted to scale it and just put it out to the world, and realizing I'm so niched on who I deal with and speak to, I can serve those people so well. And yes, I can serve outside of that, but I just want to be known as the category authority in a certain place. So when they tried to bring me into other realms, that's where it failed. So it was going well until that moment scaled. And then I'm working on another joint venture now, which is starting to scale very nicely, but we're going step by step. Like they're in a phase where they're stepping it step by step, and I'm doing it with them. And as we get to the next level, okay, here's what we learned in this. Let's only step it this far next. So I guess from my learning experiences, and quite frankly, one of the persons I'm dealing with, his learning experiences in life, we're going at this in a different way to do it right.
So if you find the right partner, a joint venture marketing opportunity could work really well.
Yeah. And I've set up a bunch of affiliates that help me do what I do. They spread the word because they've worked with me. So that model works really well too, because they know you, they know how you can serve them, and they bring the right kind of clients to you. So if you do that kind of process, that I love the affiliate model in general. A, you're helping people, and B, they tend to bring the right clients to you. It's a win-win scenario when you have that built out correctly.
Well, it sounds like what you're saying is you need some discipline around what clients you're going to take. That's the core of this concept. So however you do it, you've got to stay disciplined in your selected niche. Is that how you're looking at it?
Yeah, Larry, I actually I almost had it done today. I'm just set up a new tripwire magnet because I'm attracting a certain kind of individual that I want to work with. And that tripwire is so staged to set people up, like they will know if I'm the right person that can serve them. So I don't, when I have people who go grab it, I don't need millions of people and hundreds. I need the right people in there. And if somebody goes and grabs it, I know they'll be the right people and we can have a conversation. So it does come down to how you start the attraction process too.
So how you want to talk about when you say tripwire, how do you define that, and how are you using that?
Well,
The system.
Yeah, so I'll give you, I'll have it done this weekend, but I'm launching one now. It's called the Ultimate Step-by-Step Guide to Start, Launch, and Scale a Thriving Online Community. So it's I think a 32-page guide, maps out everything I've learned. I mean, it's nice. And that's going to attract a certain kind of individuals, right? And as they read through it, it talks about thought leadership. It talks about micro niching. It really defines people. So when they grab that, what ends up happening next is my next simple offer is, oh, hey, here's a free video also that goes with that to walk you through some processes. But then I'm going to be doing my next challenge on how to build, how to scale a thriving community. So that's my tripwire, a very easy intro to work with Chris, to go through a challenge with him. So I've been doing that. My clients have been doing that. It's simple and the conversion rates are high. Now, everybody's like, I'm going to get thousands a week with this thing. I'm like, no, I'm like, you're going to get the right people because your content's going to speak to those people. So if you end the week get 5 individuals who grab that, go talk to them a little bit on LinkedIn afterward. Don't just keep them in your email system. So, but that's when I consider a tripwire. It's a simple, nice little, you might want to call it a lead magnet. I don't consider it a lead magnet because it's a lot longer than a simple 1-pager download. Then it goes into, okay, how can I get ingrained with Chris? Oh, he has a workshop. Oh, he's speaking at this event. Give him a next step to get to know you.
Well, it's the right thing to do. And I wonder about the barriers to being able to get something like that done for a lot of people. I mean, I think for you, it's sort of natural to be able to put stuff like that together. It's one of your skill sets,
Right.
I think. And then the task engineering to make things simpler and easier, and learning all kinds of marketing tricks to use the right tools and so on. Can you get into some more details about how do you put a tripwire together?
So here's what I would suggest. Take a look at the kind of, and this goes down to micro niching. And I have a micro niching document if anybody wants it. I could probably put the download in here if you want it.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, I'll grab that as we get going through this. But what I want to say is take the moment to seriously find your micro niche. Don't, niche is great. Go micro. Go micro. You got to go deeper these days. When you have that, then you build. And how I came up with this guide, I'm going to tell you 100% how I came up with this guide. I talked to a lot of people last year, and all of them were like, I have no clue how to build a community. And they were all my target client. They all were. And I'm like, oh, and I heard this thing not once, not twice, like over 50 times in a 2-month period. So I was like, you know what? My next challenge is going to be this. I already said I'm going to show people how to build and scale a thriving community, because no matter what their offer is, you need community around that offer. So then I started saying, you know what? Let me show people a nice little guide that shows them how to build a thriving community online. Now, what are they going to need next? After I give them all that, that thing is loaded, Larry. I think it's over 30 pages, and I've got a lot of good, everything they need. But what's going to happen after that? Well, now how do I scale it? How do I do this? How do I do that? Oh, Chris, you're doing a challenge. You're going to show me all that stuff, right? So that's exactly what I'm going to do next. Have them come through my challenge. And yes, full disclaimer, I'm going to have an offer out of the challenge. But by then, they will know who I am, and my offer is going to help them grow that community. So you really have to take time at looking at that niche, hearing their pain points, and building something around that. And it doesn't have to be a guide. You could do a workshop, do it once, invite people to it, and then cut that workshop up. Oh, here's the 5 top points I talked about, and put it in a PDF with the workshop. It's that simple. It's not that confusing. Now there's technology behind all that work, so I won't get into all that stuff, but I use some technology for that stuff too.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got about 20 minutes left. Anybody would like to come up and bring their thought leadership around being successful and creating a stable business, creating a lucrative business, just, show up in the chat or raise your hand and we'll bring you up there. I've thought a lot about this concept of Chicky, so we'll bring you up first. I thought a lot about this concept of stones in my shoe, rocks in my shoe. And whenever I feel a rock in my shoe, I stop for a minute and I decide, can I fix this? Or do I need to find somebody who can fix it? And I don't let the rock sit in there too long. And a rock could just be something like, I don't know how to write this well enough, or I don't know how to lay it out, or I don't know how to design it, or I don't know how to create a funnel out of it. We'll figure it out and figure out if you can do it or not. Try it yourself first, though, I think. So, Chicky, you've done a lot with communities and obviously know Chris really well. Do you want to weigh in on this? Or?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I apologize. I've got some noise in the background. Specifically because Chris and I have done this together and, kind of worked through what happens when you build a community by yourself. And I want you to think about community like a shopping mall. Okay. And if you are going to open a store, so in the micro niching space, that might be a cycling store for mountain bikers who are going to, take mountain races, right? To Chris's analogy there. If you open that store out on the highway all by itself, you're going to get people to come to it on the day that they need something from that. You're not going to get them to visit you every day unless you add a coffee shop and, maybe a little cafe. I mean, you add things around it. So it's frequency of the need for the information drives how often people visit something. So again, if you can think about whatever your niche is, and think about it as, could it be a standalone store, right? Can you open a community and have enough people coming on a regular basis? I mean, what I have done, and it's funny because Chris started off by himself, came into my community of communities, and then because of this other partnership, decided to go back out. And again, he's doing his communities around challenges, which is a beautiful model. And, I am fully behind everything Chris has said. And, Chris knows I am behind him to make him successful in whatever approach he chooses. And, I know Larry had been, in circles and then in my, the same platform that I use for my community of
Mighty
community.
Networks, it is.
Yeah, Mighty Networks. But I would encourage you, because there are platforms that allow you tomorrow to start your own micro niche community. But if you don't have people visiting it every day, it won't last. And if you have them visit every day during a challenge or during a workshop that you offer, that's good. But how do you get them to come back afterwards? So my philosophy personally is being a part of a community of communities is exactly what LinkedIn is. It's just too big. And not just too big and too many people, but it's too broad. I mean, to Chris's point, like, I've made my community about people who are game changers. So if you're a person who goes in and helps somebody streamline their processes, you probably don't want to be in my community. But if you want to attract cyclists, if you want to attract your micro niche and they also happen to be game changers, then being a part of my community of communities works, because you then get to be the expert in whatever topic it is, or you can even have your own private community, right? Chris and I have done it multiple ways. And again, it's about getting people to visit all the time, right? What can you do to attract somebody to your community every single day? Because there are too many other choices of where they can go.
And I'll say, I know I got a lot of messages from you who want that guide, that online guide. I was trying to have it done today. I needed to do one more cleanup through the PDF. I just need to read it one more time. That's the only reason I've done. Landing page is done. Just shoot me a DM on LinkedIn and I'll get it, or I'll give it to Larry and Larry, I'll get it out to all you. Because it's got a lot of keys to the puzzle there. And then I see one question here. Humberto, I never use InMail. I just wanted to answer that. I saw your message there. I never use InMail. I've never used it once. I connect with people, I engage with them, and I go about that route. Because you know what? If I get an email, I never look at them. I've never looked at one. So that's my tip there.
Sounds good. Hey,
sorry.
Sandy, we'll do Randy first, and then I think you'd be next then. Sorry, I'm not completely tracking all the, I just saw the hand pop up, but yeah, we'll make sure to get you up here. So Randy, did you have a comment or a question?
Hey, Chris. Yeah, first of all, I put a little post on there about community, and because it's such an important aspect of it. Just all my sales experience in the decades that I've been doing it has always proven that it's all about building relationship with people. And while I don't use LinkedIn so much as a tool for generating leads, it's a great way to reinforce the relationships in a sense that I have. I have the benefit of having just been around a long time, so I've got a lot of people I can turn to. For me, I was just going to say that I think the one other piece of advice that I think would be helpful is when you made a sale, when you've had a successful relationship with somebody, talk to each one of those customers that you've been successful with. They can refer you to 2 or 3 or 4 other people. I mean, how many sort of gigs can you take on at any one time? And so I've found that this year I've really practiced that, and I have more leads, more opportunities than I probably have ever had. So that's just my comment.
And your name's Randy. It's not Durand.
Well, Durand is my real name.
Oh, okay, there you go. Sorry.
I've been trying to get people to use my real name since I was a kid, but unfortunately, that's the nickname I got stuck with. So anyway.
you have such a good point there. And it's something, and I have actually a living example of that. Right before the holidays, one of my clients that I launched last year just was chatting with her and, just, hey, if there's anybody that I can ever help, like you need, like I did for you, just let me know. And I literally had a woman book time on my calendar yesterday. And I'm like, I kind of know when somebody's going to book time on my calendar because I've been engaged with them. I'm like, who's this? Ends up sending me a DM this morning on LinkedIn. Hey, Sherry referred me to you. She said, you did this, this, and this. It's exactly what I need. I cannot wait to talk to you. I was like, okay. But it goes to your point right there, right? Like just talking to those customers because they're the ones that you served.
Well, clearly the people you've had good results with are going to be your best future customers, as well as the people, the references that will really build your business. And especially since so many of us are in those one-on-one kind of consulting, or we're selling some particular service, it's oftentimes an overlooked asset. Just go back to the people you've been successful with and ask them, just be talking with them and find out, oh, well, gee, can I, you've been mentioning to this other person that I did this thing. Would you help me have a conversation with them, or just get together with them? If there is a way to personally connect, get together and have a drink, whatever. And that's always led to more business for me.
Perfect. Hi, Sandy.
Hello. Nice to see you.
You too.
And Happy New Year, by the way. So I just want to, I'm conflicted here because, talking to Chris here. Chris, hello. Chris, I would like to, I started off with British accent for actors who want to succeed in the acting. But now I'm getting this was my micro niche. Now I'm getting inquiries from non-English speakers who would like a British accent. And so what do I do? What would you do in such a situation?
Maybe you have a new market that's attracted to you all of a sudden, and
Right.
you have a new opportunity. I mean, there is, I'm not saying that's exactly, but that is something you may want to consider. If you have enough of those inquiries coming in, you might be like, hey, can I serve those people? Can I do something for them? Have some conversations with them.
So there's an old saying, you can't ride a horse with two asses or something like that.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
But so does this mean you can serve different audiences on LinkedIn like that? That's what gives me this mental block. How do you do that?
So here's what, a coach I work with, right? If you go look at who this coach is, she speaks to one people group on LinkedIn, and she crushes it. This woman kills it. But if you go see who all her clients are on the back end, now she has those clients that she speaks to. Don't get me wrong. I'm in her community, has all those clients she speaks to. But then there's this subsegment. And I asked her, I said, how'd you pull that off? And she's like, it's just like you're preaching, Chris. Speak to the one people group. That's who you become known for. But the others just start to come in a flow, and have systems for them. But what you're going to do if you don't do that is you're going to speak to the freaking world, and nobody's going to listen. So that's why if you can speak to a people group, that tribe, whatever you want to call it, and get dialed on that Peloton. Larry tells me not to use Peloton, but that's all us cyclists. That's crazy guys. But speak to them. And when the others come, just have ways of, having systems for them too. Because you're not going to get stuck by micro niching.
I get you. So you don't have to connect suddenly with these business people. You just keep connecting with the actors.
Yeah, if that's who you're going to serve, keep on going that. But you may also find out of this. I mean, here's the thing. Everything's an experiment in marketing. Let's just be real. Mm-hmm. Any genius out there tells you, hey, I got this. Like when I started doing these challenges, they were a freaking experiment. Okay. But they worked. That's the good thing. But when you got to learn from that experiment, okay, that mixture didn't work so well, but look at that mixture gave me. Let me go over here now. And then you'll keep on refining as you go along. And I've been through this the entire way. That's the hard, one of these days I'm going to really release the true journey. I'm actually writing a book, and there's a lot of moments of pure tears in that way. I mean, a lot more tears than the rah-rahs. I will say that. But when you get those rah-rah moments, you've got to grasp them, because that's what you cried for the whole way.
Okay, thank you very much. That's really powerful. Thank you.
I think it's important to think about this as a mindset challenge too. So for me, the idea of ready, fire, aim came out of recognizing that I'd made a decision about something and needed to prove that right. And the scientific method does not work that way. The scientific method is you create a hypothesis about something and you get data to prove, to validate or disprove your hypothesis. And then once you get traction, you get traction and you go in that direction. Well, then the question is, how do you do that? So the way I'm doing it is I created a data input sheet. So when I'm talking to somebody, I'm writing down, how do they describe what they do? How do they describe themselves? How do they describe the situation they're in? How do they describe where they want to end up? And how do they describe the minefield they're in? And then experiences is how are they solving that problem and the results of that experience, plus how much did they pay and from who and who did they buy? And then at the end, I get introduced into their networks. That's how I do that in every single call I do. And I do hundreds of calls with people. What that does is it takes me out of this fixed idea of what it's supposed to be, because when you start looking at that data, it's amazing. Like all of a sudden I'll realize like, oh, I was doing it wrong, or I was thinking about it wrong, because they're thinking about it in a different way.
And
you may want to
Larry,
change your niche. You may want to completely change your niche, but you want to have clarity. You don't want to go to the market. So one of the things I've done that is really confuse people, and I'm as confusing as it can get because my brain is all over the place. So the discipline is around, don't go to market with your hypothesis being, let me figure out what people are doing and thinking which will work. Make a decision like you did, put out that decision with unbelievable clarity, get the feedback, and then change the decision to another decision that also brings unbelievable clarity to the market. So you're not extroverting your confusion, out there, which is what most people do, because they're like, well, I don't know. And then you go to their LinkedIn profile and they do 15 different things. You can't figure out what any of them mean.
Yeah. You said my word of the year, by the way, clarity. So there you go. Getting some clarity here today.
So I talked to Richard Moore yesterday. I did an interview with him, and I've known Richard for over a year now, and he's said something pretty consistently, which really came out around, he had a pretty stable business, it was going well, but it wasn't really taking off the way he wanted, and it wasn't scaling. And what changed was product clarity. So he figured out his niche, but what he hadn't figured out was his product. And I realized this only a couple months ago, because I had too many products and it was confusing and people couldn't figure it out. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do one product, Revenue Climber Expedition. Here's what it is. Here's the entry point to it, which is this kind of assessment process where you get some value without having to pay anything to figure it out, get started. So if you have that one product, that one market with clarity, that will make a big difference, getting feedback from people so you can adjust it as you need to.
Sorry, so it's like going into the supermarket and being confused by all of the products, and then people go into the zombie mode and they come out with nothing.
Well, they've done studies of this. You're gonna put something on an end cap for trial. You use 3 flavors. You don't do 15 flavors. Then people pick 0. This is all science. I think this is important. I think to understand is, I know for myself, I study brain science quite a bit, and I read books about how people think and make decisions. Books on positioning, which is what marketing really is. Marketing is all about positioning and differentiation. Clarity.
Yeah, it has to be clear. I mean, like I see Nick's comment down there. Like, take, for example, you ever go to a landing page and somebody has 9 different buttons on there?
Yeah.
Like, when I work with clients, they're like, they do a challenge. They're like, oh, I want to put this here. I'm like, all you want is the person to sign up for your challenge if it makes sense for them. You don't want them going to your website. You don't want them going here. You just want them on your challenge. So it's nothing different. You got the less in front of a person, the easier it is for them to grasp it.
So we got a few more minutes, but thanks, Chris. This was awesome.
No problem. Great
I
talking
really
to everybody.
appreciated it again. And Chris has got his link in the chat, and I've got my calendar link as well if anybody's interested in that 30 minutes. we're going to break down for 30 minutes in one-to-one groups. If anybody can stay. If not, look forward to, seeing you soon. And the way we do the breakout is if you're in a room with somebody like